spent a good amount of time this season talking about forgiveness, fairness, loyalty, guilt, and other things that it takes to understand how to live well. Every one of these topics, if you pull on the concept long enough, tends to lead to the same place. This episode of American Socrates is going to be about that place. We need to understand love, not merely as an emotion or something that happens to you, but as something that you can control. A form of art, a skill, a practice. You're either going to develop this or you won't. Erich Fromm, writing in 1956, made an argument that most people still haven't fully reckoned with. That love is a skill, and that most of us are pretty bad at it. Not because we're unloving people, but because we've never treated it as something that requires a practice and a patience from us. Welcome back to American Socrates. I'm Matt Rupert. I want to start off with a quote from Fromm. He wrote that love is the only sane and satisfactory answer to the problem of human existence. Which is an interesting thought right off the bat. First of all, we come preloaded then with a sense of problems. Our existence, human existence itself, is a problem. And so Fromm doesn't start with a romantic view of love. He starts with this human condition of you as yourself, aware of yourself as a separate individual, isolated and cut off. It's a self that is distinct from everyone else, that will live and will die, and that cannot fully be known by another person. Our awareness of this produces what Fromm calls the fundamental problem of human existence, isolation. He calls it the prison of aloneness. You're imprisoned in your body, you're imprisoned in your flesh, and you can never quite reach through that to touch another human being. So we're not talking loneliness here in the casual sense, but this sort of deeper experience of being an individual, being a self who is closed off from everyone else, entirely in itself, unable to fully merge with other people. And yet we have that desire. Every culture in history has tried to solve this problem. Conformity, for example, losing yourself to the group so that the separateness stops hurting. That's one way of dealing with this problem. Certain rituals, creative work, moments of transcendence that briefly sort of dissolve the boundary. Intoxication, alcohol, drugs, that give us a sense of oneness and togetherness and communion and community. These are all partial solutions. Fromm's argument is that the only full and complete solution is love itself. And to be specific, he means mature love, which he's going to define as the union with another person under the conditions that preserve rather than dissolve our self, our individuality, our integrity. So we're not enmeshing with other people. We're not becoming one in a literal sense. We can't lose our identity in the relationship or in the other person. The mature love requires a union where two whole people still continue to exist in close orbit to each other. And this matters because it reframes what love is for. It isn't primarily a feeling that makes life pleasant. It isn't lust, it's not flirtation, it's not desire, it's not adoration. It isn't that desire for tender commitment either. It is the response to the deepest problem human beings face, their natural isolation. So that raises the stakes pretty considerably here. And it explains why getting love wrong has deep consequences that go far beyond disappointment or hurt or rejection. I think if you were to just walk around on the street and ask complete strangers what is love, the first answer that they would come up with is, of course, it's an emotion, right? It's something you feel when you are connected to something in a passionate sort of way. Contemporary culture then tends to treat love almost entirely as something that happens to you. You fall in love. An emotion wells up inside of you, something like that. You find the right person and all the magic happens. The chemistry clicks, or it doesn't. The dominant romantic model is essentially passive. The right conditions have to be produced, and if they are, you get this feeling, and that feeling is what the love is, and that's what we're all trying to find. We're just hoping that it happens to us. Fromm diagnoses this contemporary cultural view pretty bluntly. He says that we've confused the experience of falling in love, which is real and it's intense, but it's also temporary, with love itself. The limerence phase, the puppy love, the immature love. That's what we generally think of as love. It's that feeling you get when you lock eyes with someone and you feel a deep sense of connection, or, you're vibing and they're vibing on your vibe, and you just feel that pull together. It doesn't always have to be sexual. It can be friends. It can be a bond over a shared identity or a shared interest. But falling in love is the collapse of the barrier between two people who were, in some ways, previously strangers. It's exhilarating precisely because it's sudden and it's new, but it's not a skill. That puppy love is not the real thing. It's not going to last. The intensity usually fades. Even like sexual bonding, generally the honeymoon period, so to speak, only lasts like 4 to 6 months, typically. The intensity fades here, not because anything's wrong, but because that's just what intensity always does. Intensity always goes away. So what remains after falling in love with someone are questions of whether there's actually anything there to bond over, whether two people have built anything together, whether they know each other in any kind of real depth, whether they're intimate, whether they're committed, whether they're wanting to grow into each other. The practical consequence of that modern understanding, that love is an emotion understanding, is that when the intensity fades, the people start to think that the love has faded too, or that something is wrong in the relationship, and they go looking for that feeling again. The problem isn't the relationship. The problem is the definition. If love is a feeling that arrives and departs, then the departure signals the end of the relationship, right? You've fallen out of love with someone. But if love is a practice, then the departure of the intensity is just the point where the actual work is about to begin. This is where you need to put your effort in, because now you're starting to figure out how to build a life with someone. So a second consequence of all this is that we invest enormous amounts of energy in finding the right person, and almost no energy in becoming someone capable of loving well, of loving deeply. I mean, if this is a skill, and he's right about this, then, we're either going to get good at this or we're not. And don't you want to be the kind of person who knows how to have deep, loving relationships with other people? Most people just never develop it. They bring the same limitations to every relationship, and they attribute the failures of those relationships to either circumstances or compatibility. All right, let's talk about love as a skill for a second. Fromm identifies 4 components that together are going to constitute mature love sort of as a practice. The first one is care. It's an active concern for the life and the growth of the person that you supposedly love. This is not a feeling of fondness for this person. I like them, I want to be around them. This is I want to see this person flourish. I want to see them achieve their goals. I want to see them grow into the person that they want to become. I'm willing to make sacrifices to see this person achieve their ends. Fromm uses the example of a woman who says she loves flowers but forgets to water them. You can't love something that you aren't willing to tend to. If you don't really care about the thing enough to actually look for its real needs, you don't really love it. So care is the element that distinguishes love from attachment or maybe even possession. You can be deeply attached to someone while doing nothing that actually serves their growth. And this folds right into the second one, which is responsibility. We're not talking an obligation here in a legal sense, like a certain kind of like, well, you have legal responsibilities. We're talking about a sense of responsiveness, the willingness to respond to what other people's actually need. You're looking after their needs. You're trying to figure out what they need. Sometimes they don't even know themselves what they need, but you have made it your mission to help them figure out what they need so that you can understand it, so that you can help them achieve it. And that's opposed to what you want to give them or what is simply convenient. This is not about you, it's about them. So responsibility in love means taking the other person's reality very seriously, like enough to be changed by it yourself. Their needs have to have some kind of claim on you. And that claim is part of what it means to love them. You can do this, Fromm says, if you have the third thing, which is a sense of respect. So Fromm's definition of respect here is pretty precise. He's going to say that respect is the ability to see a person as they are, rather than as you need them to be for you. It requires that you have enough independence from them, enough a sense of self to be outside of their psychology, so to speak, that you don't need to distort the other person to fit your requirements. You don't live vicariously through them, like a mother who lives vicariously through her children. You are independent of your children in such a way that you can see what they need to flourish themselves and not what you need them to be in order to help or protect yourself. This is why self-love and love of other people are actually connected for Fromm. A person who doesn't have a stable sense of their own worth tends to need the other person in a certain way, and that need prevents them from genuinely seeing who that person is. So respect is only possible from a position of relative security and a position of strength. Which brings us to the last one, knowledge. Real love requires knowing the other person. I mean, you really have to get to know them. Not a surface level, hey, answer 3 questions for me and I can claim that I know you now. But the kind that comes with sustained attention over a long period of time. Fromm is pretty direct about how rare this really is. Most people know the closest people to them far less well than they believe they know them. Because real knowledge requires setting aside your own preoccupations long enough to actually attend to someone else's needs. I mean, think about this. How long has it been since you've had a conversation with someone else where you were actually just trying to hear what they had to say and not really waiting your turn to give your opinion or your advice or your commentary? It's pretty hard. It's pretty rare. I think most of us instantly are going to our opinion and our takes on things long before we've figured out what they've actually have to say. Knowledge in this sense is active then, not passive. It's something that you need to pursue actively, like you need to pay specific attention to someone. And when we take these 4 things together, love is not then a state of being, but an ongoing set of practices. It's a movement. So you can ask of any relationship then, am I exercising care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge in this relationship? The answers are going to be concrete and actionable in a way that do I feel love for this person is not. One of Fromm's most probably countercultural claims here is that love is an expression of strength, not an expression of need. The giving that love requires of us, that giving of attention, the giving of other person your time, your energy, your honesty, and a lot more. You have to give of yourself. You have to give your sense of humor. You have to share with them who you are. That can only come from a person who has the strength to open themselves up and to give freely. A person who is emotionally depleted, who maybe never developed their own capacity for engagement with life, who is driven primarily by their own needs. Those people are not going to be able to love, not in this Frommian sense. They have a lack of skill or some kind of blockage that's going to prevent them from connecting on this deep level with other people. They can attach to people, sure, They can become dependent on people. They can try and possess people, try to control people. But giving of themselves, giving in this full sense, opening themselves up and exposing who they are as a person so that the other person can relate to them in this completely authentic way, that requires something of these people that they simply do not have, at least not yet. This runs directly against the romantic idea that love is the most pure when it's kind of the neediest. That to need someone desperately is the deepest form of love. Like, oh, I breathe the air that you breathe. I need you so badly. Fromm inverts that. Needing someone and loving them are not the same thing, and they actually can work against each other. A person who needs you to be a certain way in order to feel secure cannot be someone that you see clearly. They cannot respect you in the real sense. And they cannot support your growth when your growth threatens their need for security. They're never going to be that deep with you. They're never going to be that attached to you. And if that's you, you're never going to be attached to other people because you're going to see people as sort of objects for your own security, your own well-being. Neediness then masquerades as love, but it functions as a constraint on the other person. I think as a culture, we really get this wrong, like really badly. We tend to think of enmeshment in this way as a kind of deep set of love. I mean, anybody who's ever been to a wedding has seen this kind of rhetoric in play. The pastor or the preacher or the priest or whoever will stand up there and they'll give the sermon and they'll use metaphors like the unity candle, where the flame of the man and the flame of the woman have merged to become the single flame of the relationship and the marriage. And so they disappear into each other. And that's bad. You know, what Fromm is saying is that's terrible. That is a recipe for disaster in a relationship. The two should not become one. The two must maintain their integrity so that they can respect each other and help each other to grow. That's the real strength of a relationship. It requires a certain amount of distance and a certain amount of integrity. Not too much distance, but the right amount. So the practical implication then here is that for the work of becoming capable of loving is largely just the work of becoming a person with enough inner resources that you can give of yourself without depleting yourself. That work happens in the individual long before you begin the relationship. It includes things like developing interests and competencies, building an honest appraisal of yourself, a sense of self-knowledge and a sense of self-worth, learning to be alone without being anxious. Fromm calls this the being orientation. You're finding meaning in life in its aliveness and in your engagement with it. You are engaged in life. You love life. And that is a giving response. You give of yourself to your life, and the life gives right back to you. So you're giving rather than trying to have. You're giving rather than trying to possess or accumulate or hoard or take in. Most people are trying to control. They're trying to bring in. This is why we're all obsessed with money. But what we're saying here is that loving is an act of giving it away. It's an act of doing just the opposite. You know, people oriented towards having want status, they want control, they want security. They tend to relate to other people the same way, as things to be acquired and things to be possessed. Fromm identifies 5 different types of love, and it's worth visiting them a little bit. I think that there's a mistake that could easily be made here where we start to think of these as really important categories. It's not. The most important thing that Fromm is trying to tell us about love is that it's a skill and you need to develop it. But you can develop it in different ways with different people, and it all kind of works to reinforce all of your different types of relationships. The first type of relationship that he develops is what he calls brotherly love. It's that Greek sense of philia. It's the love of the neighbor, the love of the stranger, the love of the friend. These are people who you have to take a vested interest in and genuinely want to see flourish. You're not necessarily going to sleep with these people. You're not going to necessarily live with these people, but you care about them. If you have a friend and you're not checking in on them to see how well they're doing, then you don't have a friend. It's that kind of idea. You're taking some kind of ownership, some sort of responsibility for the well-being of another person. Related to this is his idea of motherly love, which I read as simply brotherly love, but perhaps more unconditional. The mother loves the child in a way that the child is just surrounded by love, and there's really nothing they can do wrong. That might be a little pathological between adults. But in the sense of like a mother and child, that relationship might be necessary for the proper development of the child. They need the ability to, well, for lack of a better term, fuck around and find out. But in a positive sense, they need to explore. They need to go out there and risk. They need to try things out. Things that could be bad. Things that they need to learn are in fact bad. And they can do that with the safety and security of knowing that their parents love them unconditionally. The third type of love that he identifies is erotic love, corresponding to the Greek word eros. It's sexual love, or I think the way Fromm actually describes it is the wish for sexual union between things. It's passionate. It's powerful. Erotic love isn't necessarily only sexual, though. One example that I often give my students to try and understand how erotic love works is anyone who is a fan of a sports team. If you're truly a fan, which we should all know is short for fanatic, if you are fanatic about something, you are desiring to give yourself completely to this thing, to lose yourself in it. And that's what erotic love really is. I want to lose myself in this identity. I want to merge with it. I want to become one with it. So the fans of the teams, they'll buy all the team's logos. They'll buy all their stuff. They'll paint their body the team's colors. They'll buy tickets to the game. They will immerse themselves in their identity as associated with that team because they have an erotic love for that team. Now, we generally don't think of it that way, but that's what a sports fan is. They're erotically in love with a sports team. By its very nature, erotic love is not something you can be shared. It's pretty exclusive. You can't be in erotic love with every sports team. You're just special teams. There's an intimacy there that's singular. The fourth type of love that he identifies is the love of the self. And it's very easy to confuse this, I think, with selfishness or a sense of self-interest. But it's not really either of those things. What he means by self-love here is your ability to give to yourself the same things that you would give to other people. He thinks of it as your capacity to love. You can think of it as your love tank. If you cannot love yourself, then your ability to love is limited. You can only love others as much as you can possibly love yourself. Like if you're going to be able to give and share who you are with another person, to be completely open, to be completely vulnerable, to be completely intimate with another human being, you're going to have to be open and vulnerable and forgiving and kind and understanding to yourself first. If you can't do that, if you look down on yourself, if you rag on yourself, if you hate on yourself, you're not going to be able to share yourself with anybody else. And so without self-love, you're pretty limited in the kinds of, or the depth of the relationships that you can really enter into. The fifth and final type that I want to look at here is what he calls the love of God, which is a word that he kind of questions because it doesn't necessarily mean God in the theological sense. We could mean something like a love of the oneness with the world or with all of humanity or with the creation itself or something like that. It's related to the Greek term agape, but it's not focused on a, say, personification of that wholeness, that oneness. For Fromm, this agape sense of love is one where you have reached the maximum potential. So you have mastered the art of love. In this way, you love everyone and you love everything, which is not to say that you don't hate things. That's a lot easier. That's a much lower bar. I don't hate anybody is a much easier thing to accomplish than saying I love everybody. If love is in some ways giving of yourself, you're going to have to be able to share that self with anybody. Now, think about this in terms of the Christian sense of loving one's enemies. To do this in the Frommian sense, you have to expose yourself be vulnerable to, people that you actively know want to hurt you. Now, that is potency. Only the strongest people can do it. I know for a fact I am not capable of that. I am not that good at love. The idea that I could tell my intimate secrets to a person who I know is just looking for ammunition to fire at me. They're looking for information they can use against me, and to just supply them with that information because has so much integrity. I am so strong inside that I can give them that and it won't hurt me. I'll still be safe. I'll still feel safe. That's that sense of agape. That's that sense of completeness. It's vanishingly rare. We're talking Buddha level or Christ-like level feelings of completeness, integrity, and the ability to give to others in this loving way. So for Fromm, what all this boils down to is developing yourself as a human being so that you can live this complete and loving life. We face this challenge right from the beginning. As a Freudian, Fromm is going to subscribe to the idea of primary narcissism. All of us, every single human being, was born as a narcissist. We can't help it. It's pre-programmed into us. Babies cannot meet their own needs, and so they have to be very insistent on other people meeting those needs for them. And so that's how we survive. I need you to do everything for me as a baby. I need you to clean me. I need you to feed me. I need you to keep me warm. Every one of my needs has to be met by somebody else because I'm not capable of doing it on my own yet. As we grow up, that narcissism is supposed to fade away, and it's supposed to be replaced increasingly by a sense of empathy. That empathy can develop then into a sense of love. We could even say that what love is the overcoming of that primary narcissism. And so the pathological narcissist gets stuck there. They never develop a sense of loving. They never develop the ability to overcome that need to have other people stabilize them and fulfill them. They don't have the internal integrity to do that. And so they use other people, they manipulate other people, because ultimately they're fragile and they rely on other people to give them a sense of self-worth. Fromm's challenge here is not really a comfortable one. I think it's easier to think of love as an emotion, because he's saying that love is something most of us are not very good at, not because we're bad people, right? But because we haven't treated it as the skill it needs to be treated as. We don't practice it enough. We don't work on it. We don't go and talk to strangers and expose ourselves. We're shy. We're socially awkward. And because of that, we limit our ability to really connect with other human beings, which deep down we crave. So we sit around instead just waiting to feel it rather than learning to practice it. The good life, if it's anything, is going to require love. It's going to require these kinds of deep connections. Psychological studies have borne this out, that one of the most important things that you can do to have a good, happy life is to have lots of meaningful and deep connections with a great diversity of people. If you want to be a good business person, you have to develop this kind of relationship with your clients, with your coworkers. This is what makes the world go round. This intimacy with each other, this connection with each other. And it's just strikingly sad that most of us are bad at it. Looking back over the last several episodes, we can see that there's a lot of ongoing commitments here. To honesty about what it is that we owe each other, to releasing the things that we can't change, to showing up for people who we've chosen to show up for, to acting from our own values rather than in reaction to other people's behavior. Love, at least in the Frommian sense, I think is kind of a banner under which all of those still fly. The question that we need to ask here is not, am I loved, but am I becoming someone capable of loving others well? That question has a different shape than most of the questions our cultures tell us to ask about love and many other things. And it locates the work inside us rather than outside of us. The upshot here is that Fromm's idea of love puts the ball back in your hands. if you're not having these loving relationships, well, you can do something about that. You're not powerless. You're not hopeless. If it really is just an emotion, it's out of your control, and you're just going to have to deal with whatever fate sends you. Thanks for tuning in to American Socrates. If today's episode of Philosophy got you thinking in new ways, make sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. New, full episodes drop every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, leave a review. It helps others find us, and it means a lot. And if you know someone who could use a little more practical wisdom in their life, share this episode with them. Until next time, keep questioning everything.